I'm going to read you a quote. Criminals took to the streets with confidence there would be no consequence for their actions. Let me repeat that. Criminals took to the streets with confidence there would be no consequences for their actions. That and the repeat part, that's all a direct quote from the chief of police in Chicago. Him and Mayor Lori Lightfoot in Chicago gave a press conference today in response to the insane night of looting and riots that ensued in Chicago last night. And this is coming in the midst of Chicago just having a crazy increase in gun violence. The numbers that are coming out of that city are staggering, the amount of shootings and the amount of deaths due to gun violence. You have local residents of Chicago likening their experience living there to living in Iraq, living in a war zone. Simultaneously, you have the mayor demonizing the president. The president offered to send in federal officers to help with the situation in Chicago because it seems as though the local police, it's too much for them to handle. And Lori Lightfoot did not accept that. She says, I don't want police coming in and terrorizing our residents and this and that, while her residents are being terrorized by criminals. She's not accepting help from the President of the United States, who wants to send in federal officers to help. Thankfully, she finally accepted a little bit of help. He sent in Operation Legend. Operation Legend is there not necessarily because of the riots, more for the insane gun violence that happens. Legend is named after a little boy named Legend. He was 1 year old and shot while he was at a barbecue, I believe. And I'll give you some of those numbers. So since Trump has sent in those federal officers, just this past weekend, they had 149 guns that were confiscated. And not even including that, 164 guns were turned in by people in Chicago. They had to turn in your gun little thing, activity, festival thing. And that was by the officers that Donald Trump sent in. In the past 7 days, 9 officers in Chicago have been shot at. So that's just a little snapshot of what's been going on in Chicago. You're seeing numbers come out like 60 people shot at, like 15 dead this weekend, 20 dead. Just really, really bad numbers. And last night, what happened was probably the tip of the iceberg. So let me give you an exact timetable of what happened last night because there's a lot of confusion as to how it started. So it started because police had a call in Inglewood that there was a man with a gun, brandishing the gun. So they respond to the call, they come out to try and talk to the man. The man is resisting, he's aggressive, he starts to run away from officers. While he's running away from officers, he turns around, points a gun and shoots at officers. Officers shoot him. He's taken to the hospital. His injuries are not critical. He's going to be just fine. He ended up being a 20-year-old man with previous charges. His charges are burglary, child endangerment, domestic battery, and there was a gun recovered when police arrested him. When police were arresting him, a large group formed in this area, and then messages started going out on social media, and the rioting and looting ensued. And this was all a misunderstanding. Police were completely justified in what they did, but even though it was a misunderstanding, I don't even think that the people that were doing this, I don't think they care either way. This was completely opportunistic. These were criminals going out and committing federal crimes and terrorizing the city and looting the city. These are some numbers that came out of last night. There was mass looting. Hundreds of people were running all throughout, Mag Mile in Chicago. It's a very heavy, very nice touristy area, and they were there because of all the nice stores that are there. There were 100 arrests, 13 officers were injured. 2 people were shot at, a civilian was shot at, a security guard was shot at. Some of the injuries that officers faced, there was a head injury to a bottle that was thrown at a police officer. Another police officer had his nose broken while he was trying to stop a group of looters. What else? There were 5 guns recovered last night. And this is all coming at a time where you have the mayor who refused federal help from the president for some time. You have local officials who are voting to defund police. This was said by the chief of police that this is an active attack on officers. He gave stories when officers are trying to make arrests, how they're being attacked and demonized. So this is what's going on in Chicago right now. We saw this in a lot of cities, and the alarming thing is you're watching footage from some of these riots, especially what's going on in Portland, and it seems like they're getting increasingly aggressive. Even when the numbers are kind of dwindling, it seems like the attitude amongst protesters is getting increasingly aggressive. We saw riots happening in Seattle. There was an Amazon store, a Starbucks, a Whole Foods that were broken into and looted last night. We saw stuff happening in Portland where you have now the rioters, they tried to burn down the police union building. Rioters are now going into residential neighborhoods, antagonizing residents. You saw people marching past apartment buildings, screaming, "I know where you live, I'm gonna burn down your building," shining their flashlights in innocent civilians' apartments. Anytime someone would try to look out their window, they would bully and antagonize the person and intimidate them. It seems like you have two groups. You have the domestic terrorists, and then you have the criminals that are just taking advantage of the situation. And I hope Lori Lightfoot is waking up. Anyone that lives in Chicago at this point, the same as what I said for Portland. If you're voting Democrat, I don't even know what to say to you anymore. I mean, this is just insane. They had to pull up the bridges last night in Chicago to keep people out of coming from downtown. They have a curfew tonight. They're going to have a heavier police presence. So I would love to hear some of these city council members give their input now on the defunding of the police and to continue to demonize the police officer. Let me know your thoughts on what was happening this weekend. Hopefully it gets a lot better tonight. And that's what I have for you right now. Thank you. Bye.